It's John Mackett here and Eamon McFadden here at the Tirconaill Tribune with this week's edition of our podcast. It's the week of the 27th of May and it's gotten much busier, Eamon, hasn't it?
It has. Things have picked up as lockdown is lifted, so things on the news front are picked up a bit as well. Not all good news, but...
It's not all good news, but the sun's shining and hopefully it's going to shine throughout what we hope will be a busy weekend for the bank holiday. But we're going to look at numbers of stories right across the spectrum of the news, and we have this issue out in Kilmarnock where the Gardaí are now appealing after acts of criminality, and I spoke with Superintendent David Kelly just a couple of hours ago, and he's calling for the fullest assistance of the public in relation to a number of incidents of criminal damage in Kilmarnock. The latest between Friday night and the early hours of Monday morning. 2 horses died near the Blue Banks when they were allowed out of a field, and according to Gardaí it was a miracle that nobody was killed. And Gardaí are saying it's much too early as yet to say that there are links between these ongoing incidents, but they view these developments with great seriousness. And if you have any information of any kind out there, because there are people in the community that must know and be very clear about what's going on, and that information must be conveyed to the Gardaí, because the Gardaí do a very, very good job, but their job can only be complemented if you, the public out there, have any snitch of information at all. Do not hesitate to contact them, and that will be in the strictest confidence. The first of these latest incidents began last Friday evening, when around 9 o'clock, just across the road from the entrance to Rosemount, a house was set on fire, and a unit of the Donegal Fire Service here from Mulford attended the scene. Now, there have been other scenes. Michael McBride has also spoke out very, very strongly about it, and John O'Donnell has also added his voice to the community concerns. So that's one of the stories that we're covering. It's a story that's developing, and the Gardaí need to bring those engaged in these practices to boot very, very quickly before something more serious happens. But we'll come back to the front page just a little bit later on. But now you have a nice story here about a Letterkenny man called Troy Gallagher. Tell us about that.
Troy Gallagher, who is originally from Letterkenny, is now the new mayor of Islington Borough Council in London. Troy made history last week on Thursday night when he became the first Irish-born councillor to take a mayoral position in the Islington Borough, a well-known borough with a huge Irish expat community in it as well. He was a Labour Party councillor, and he was ratified there last month. Now, Troy is a native of Muckish Avenue in Letterkenny's Circular Road, and is the son of Girly and the late Hugh Gallagher, and well-known family. His interests in Labour politics goes back into the early 90s, and he would have been involved in general election campaigns in those years with Sean Maloney. So Sean and his wife Sally would have been guests at the inauguration on Thursday night, but unfortunately due to COVID restrictions that wasn't possible. So Councillor Gallagher told the Tribune that he would like to pay tribute to both his parents, his mum Girly and his father Hugh, and he says this is as much a testament for them raising us through the hardships and struggles of the 80s and the sacrifices that they made for us. So it's great to see a councillor, a Donegal councillor, and a whole new jurisdiction altogether, John. That's I suppose
well, obviously I knew Troy Gallagher very, very well during that whole campaign, that bandwagon that the Labour Party was on, and Maloney was one of their advocates. A very formidable character in Letterkenny, and himself and Bernard McGlinchey clashed on regular occasions, be it at town council meetings or in Lufford, and those were very, very, very good times in politics because they were very dynamic. And
big characters,
strong personalities, no punches pulled. But at the end of it all, Bernard, God rest him, was a big advocate for Letterkenny, and on a different way, so was Sean Maloney. And then at the end of that, Sean just gave up politics and just went to live in Spain, where he continues to spend a lot of his time, as does Sally, obviously. And Troy would have been a very, very outgoing character. He just loved being part of the whole circus. The likes of Dick Spring coming up here, and Rory Quinn and all the leading figures, they all came to Letterkenny, and politics has really died an awful lot. The whole dynamic of politics and the big crowds around meetings, that's all gone. Hopefully Troy does well, and I want to wish him every success. And he probably knows the scene in Islington very, very well. He's there a long time.
Yeah, well, very good. Good for him. Well done.
Then we move on. Yesterday, by the way, was the 30th anniversary of the murder of Sinn Féin councillor Eddie Fullerton at his home in Buncrana. A horrific incident when the family home's front door was smashed down with a sledgehammer. They were believed to be the UDA, UVF, whatever, in collaboration with state forces. And those boys rushed up the stairs and smashed down the door. Eddie never stood a chance. But they have just celebrated they have marked the 30th anniversary of his death with a beautiful, haunting video of 60 minutes. Very, very well compiled, very professionally produced. And I've just watched it twice already. But on the front of the paper here, we have a picture of Councillor Eddie Fullerton with a death threat he received from the Maiden City Action Force some time before that. I was over there many times, knew Eddie extremely well. He was a larger-than-life figure. He was born on the 26th of March 1935 on a small farm in Slytherin, just outside the town of Buncrana. And at 18 years of age, like most people of his immigration, courtesy of the Irish government, he was left with one option only: emigrate. So he did, to find work in Scotland, from there to Birmingham, where he met and married Diana. And that story is beautifully told in the video. And then there was a fitting memorial down at the Stone Jug, close to where Theobald Wolfe Tone was captured by British forces in 1798. And further on from that, on the sway down to the right hand side, is Friar Haggerty's grave, another man murdered by the British. This never seems to stop. But what always takes me over there is this beautiful inscription. It's a beautiful memorial to Eddie that I was proud to be present at on the evening concerned some years ago. And the inscription reads, "It's the salt of our generation," and it is a quote from Patrick Pearse. "There are in every generation those who shrink from the ultimate sacrifice, but there are in every generation those who make it with joy and laughter, and these are the salt of the generations." And that small sentence encapsulates what Eddie Fullerton was all about. And there's a whole detail in there. The video includes members of the Fullerton family reliving, especially his wife and his daughter.
Trauma of it all.
Yeah, and his wife Dinah, she recalled that horrific night, and the whole campaign to bring those to justice who came from across the border. And there is major concern that little or no progress has been made on that. But you always admire and salute the McGuinness or the Fullerton family, and indeed the Sinn Féin organisation, for keeping his name to the forefront and keeping it evergreen. He was a great advocate for the people in the Inishowen Peninsula, but across Donegal as well. And one of his main big battles was to have gaming machines and slot machines banned from the town of Buncrana. And that's one of his biggest legacies that he has left behind. He managed to achieve that. But Eddie Fullerton died at the age of 56. Far, far too young. He was just weeks away from contesting his first election. He was first elected in 1979 when he got over 10% of the vote. I mean, back then, Inishowen was basically Fine Gael territory. And Fullerton came in probably the first. He was the first Sinn Féin councillor in Donegal since the foundation of the state. And it was always said that had he been given another run at the council, he probably would have had a bash at a general election and might easily have won a Dáil seat. That is all there.
Lovely piece.
To be looked at, but we decided to honour Eddie Fullerton by simply stating in a full-page tribute that Eddie Fullerton is proudly remembered. And of course I should add to that he's never forgotten. After that, Eamon, we're going to move on to the story on Micah. This is going to be a big, big story as we approach politics and as we approach the local elections.
We'll skip on to that.
Just let us look around to see.
No, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll just go. There's a nice story here with Adrian Gallagher here.
Let's go to Adrian Gallagher and we'll come back to Micah.
Come back to Micah because
we have lost it. We lost the bleeding story.
We can do this. We have it here. Micah's there, so basically, this is a nice story of a new book that's come out here. It's a new book celebrating the beauty of Donegal's stunning coastline and mountain regions. It's going to be released now in June. Donegal's Wild Mountain Way. We have these Wild Atlantic Way and things like that and greenways, but This is penned by Adrian Gallagher, who undertook quite an epic trek around the county, over 400 kilometres worth of hiking in the highways and byways. He's penned a lot of his memoirs of this trip along the way, which he collected into this new book, and a lot of stunning photographs. There's a nice one of him on the front cover, which I think possibly could be atop of Errigal Mountain, maybe over looking Loch Alton. I'm not sure. Maybe Adrian can clarify that for us. But a lovely book to help walkers and people like that, people interested in the coastline and the hills of here. All the profits of the book are going to go to support Donegal Down syndrome, which is a very worthy charity. And so Adrian is very happy to do that. And it's a fairly epic looking book. And he is hoping to have his launch event now in early June for that there. So that'll be something worth supporting, and it'll be a nice thing for people who are interested in hill walking and the climbs and all of that around the county.
The book is available with Trevor Gamble in the shopping centre in Letterkenny. And I don't think, maybe I did see the cover of it in the shop, but I was talking to Trevor at the weekend, and he expected to sell very, very well. And we wish Adrian every success. What's that?
A nice piece.
We were slightly thrown off our script there, so we're going to take a look at our concluding record of the life and times of the Dunfanagh Golf Club, and who better to finish with than the McGinley family. Michael McGinley and Paul McGinley, of course, of the Ryder Cup fame. And I'm just looking at a nice picture there of Paul McGinley back in the day with the Ryder Cup. And in the pictures, James McCorkle and Frank Kelly. A lot of legends steeped around these golf clubs, and Dunfanagh is a wonderful course. Attracts a lot of visitors. Of course, Dunfanagh attracts a lot of northern visitors, and a golf course in any town or village is really a huge asset, you know.
They're very, very lucky to have the likes of the McGinleys involved in that. I would know Mick and them very well. I worked for Mick's company, Sigma Wireless, for a number of years, and he was always a big supporter of golf at every level, schoolboys level, club level, all that. And Paul too, they're lucky to have him, to have such a, I suppose, quite a luminary figure to be attached to the club.
Absolutely.
Down there.
I mean, you couldn't ask for more.
No, and he is a local at heart. You know, he's many would see him as a Dubliner, but I mean, he walks around Dunfanagh and he's there just with his family all the time. So I know he puts a lot into it, and I know that this Sigma have always sponsored tournaments there over the years, mixed company. So very much associated with the club. And
is it safe now to take another look at the Micah story? Have we got our thoughts back together on that one?
I suppose we'll have to get into it now, because not only is it an issue we're on the front of our paper, but for many thousands of people who showed up at 2 protests over the weekend, it's a very, very live, strong issue here in the county. One of the biggest ongoing issues here for sure. The pressures mounting on the government to address this Micah crisis. But
the pressure has been mounting on the government for 10 years or more.
Yeah.
You know, typically, these things tend to go along almost underneath the radar.
Yeah.
Ahead of the local elections 2 years ago, Joe McHugh, as a senior minister at Cabinet, worked tirelessly. The government had announced probably around 2018 a redress scheme where the homeowners with the damaged property would have to contribute 30%.
All right.
Joe worked very, very hard, spent a lot of time up on any show and done a lot of analysis. He always realised that 30% was just absolutely outlandish, but he really had no support at the Cabinet, and there was no support within any of the parties backing up that government. But he did work tirelessly, and given that he managed to get it down to 10%, it wasn't the end of the journey, it was only the start of it, as he told me last week. But he is now saying that there must be not only a full redress scheme, but any expenses incurred along the way. I mean, the reality is, if you bought a house or built a house with a mortgage of, on a ballpark figure, 250,000, and that house now is not fit for purpose, it's not fit to live in. At the end of the day, the reality is here that every component and piece of material that you build or buy or use for your own purpose is in some way controlled by government legislation to ensure that its value is what it says on the tin. And those mega blocks, most people will say that they should have been identified much, much earlier. It is claimed that we had mega back in the 1980s. I don't know
as
about
far
that.
back as 1980 and up until 2011. So there's a lot of people.
We don't know where this is going, but the reality is, from those meetings last weekend, this is going to be a major platform for the general election. Nobody knows when that's coming up, but let's say within the next 2 years. I can't believe that any government would be so spineless as to presume that they can get away with not ensuring that those people who were taken to the cleaners, because the legislation that was there to protect their rights, to protect the quality of the materials that they were using, failed. We can't go any further than that or name names. At the end of the day, government legislation was in place. Why did it go wrong?
Yeah.
Did it go wrong? Was it not adhered to?
Yeah.
Or did we not have the personnel in place to ensure that there were inspections, let it be on blocks, flooring, windows, doors, electrical, all that kind of thing.
Yeah. Quality control.
Quality control is what it's all about. The government, there's no way that they can be allowed to walk away from this.
Not at all.
I mean, there's people there with huge mortgages now. They're married with 3 and 4 children. They're already paying a very, very big mortgage. Does the government really expect them to pay another mortgage? Absolutely not, would be the answer to that.
Yeah.
So that's the Micah story. We're going to go and take a look at our lead story, actually. And this is a very personal story for a man who has decided to waive his anonymity. Another story that you would prefer not to have to do. But the story reads, man shocked at discharge from day services. And this is a man who's been availing of the services of the day centre at St Conall's Hospital in Letterkenny for 20 years. He has waived his anonymity to confirm that he has been discharged from the service, whilst the HSE continues to inform the Tirconaill Tribune that, and this is in quotation marks, no such decision has been made and there are no discussions of this nature within the Donegal Mental Health Services, end quotation mark. And it's accompanied with a picture of Jim Diver at his home with a copy of the HSE letter. So, I mean, where has this gone wrong? To all intents and purposes, the letter says he has been discharged, yet they're saying this is not the case. Anyway, read that, see what you think of it, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. Bye.